What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kane's Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Saturday morning, wanted to do a quick show this morning, just take some questions, just connect with everybody. It has been a frantic portal season, obviously national championship run going on at the same time. So we've been doing, 2 shows, 3 shows a day. Wanted to take a step back, connect with you guys, answer some questions, and really just kind of reflect on what has been an incredible portal season for the Canes. You look at the transfer portal rankings, it is just what you want it to be, coming off a year where you recruited well in the high school ranks. Look at this, man. This is last year for reference, guys. So last year, the year that led into Miami's national championship run, Miami finished third in the nation in the transfer portal, 19 commits. This was 2 portal sessions. Remember, you had the post winter and then the post spring. So 2 portal sessions. When you added it all up, Miami had 19 commits, finished third in the portal rankings, average commit of 89.61. A lot of those guys overperformed their ranking. LSU number 1. This was Brian Kelly's kind of desperate effort to save his job unsuccessfully. They were a bust. Texas Tech number 2. They made the playoffs. Ole Miss number 4. They made the semifinal, lost to Miami. Oregon, same thing, made the semifinal, lost to Indiana. They were number 5. So 4 out of these 5 teams made the playoffs. And the 5th one did not make it. They lost their coach. Their coach got fired. It was a disaster. But when you look at the names, the 4 teams that made the playoffs, Texas Tech, Miami, Ole Miss, Oregon, I would say Miami, traditional blue blood, Oregon been playing well, but these are not like this, the Georgias, Ohio States, Alabamas of the world. All 4 made the tournament. Now you flip to this year. What do you see? Familiar faces, right? LSU number 1 again. Hopefully it's the same result, and they're a tremendous disappointment and bust with Lane Kiffin and the bad character guys that they've assembled. Ole Miss living in the portal, they're number 2. Texas trying to make one run with Arch and want to load up as much as they can. They're number 3. Miami right there, number 4. Similar average rating. And then Ohio State, which has not always worked the portal as hard because they have a lot of players. Look at that, 17 commits. I think they are taking the loss to Miami, the loss to Indiana very hard. And I've talked to people who say, that's what Ohio State's doing. They're trying to get older. And that's why you see 17 commits for Ohio State. Miami only with 12. Miami, look at the commits, the numbers of commits on these top 5 portal teams. LSU with 40. So, yeah, they're number 1. They have a whole new team. They lost a team, too. Ole Miss, they're like a whole new team every year. 29 commits, also had a coaching change. Texas and Ohio State, again, these are teams that recruit at the highest level. 19 commits for Texas, Ohio State 17. Miami, very interesting, only 12. But because the quality was so high, Miami finishes number 4 in the country. Darian Metz at quarterback. The wide receiving core totally overhauled with 3 starter-level additions. Cam Vaughn, best receiver on West Virginia. Vondrevious Jacobs, depending how you feel about Nick Harbor, either best or second best receiver on South Carolina. Certainly a deep threat that Miami needed coming from the SEC. And then Cooper Barkate, top 10 receiver in the country statistically from Duke. Darian Metz's receiver. So you overhaul your passing game real quick in the portal. We've talked about what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. Damon Wilson, the best pass rusher, in my opinion, clearly the best pass rusher available, certainly the most prolific, more physical, better character than Prince Will, the one that went to Ole Miss. Sorry, the one that was front at Ole Miss went to LSU. Feels like LSU, man, they're stacking guys with character questions and a coach with character questions, but that's just kind of how they operate. So Miami gets the best defensive end in the portal. And a great safety, Omar Thornton, did some more stuff there, but only 12 commits, get their kicking game solved. But a very, very small class for Miami relative to what they've been doing with the 2 portal periods. So it's interesting change of strategy, but you see Miami right there where they need to be in the top 5. Shout out to Martin from Yucatan, live from Mexico. Good morning. J.R. Barr says, Kiffin will always choke in the big game despite spending the GDP of Louisiana. Certainly choked 2 years ago when he had the best Ole Miss roster ever, even better than this year. Played well this year. He would have been in the playoff, but bailed on his team, embarrassed himself, and then Pete Golding and Ole Miss made a run. Jared Barr says Sark will choke too. I like Texas this year, man, with some of the pickups they made, really fortifying that offensive line, getting the left tackle from Wake Forest to help Goolsby, who they brought back, running game with Hollywood Smothers from NC State, Raleek Brown from Arizona State, Of course, Cam Coleman, the marquee receiver. They've done some work on the portal, clearly trying to go all in on Arch Manning, similar to what Miami did when they had Cam Ward. Ronthama says, this offense gives me 2013 West Virginia vibes with a better running game. Interesting comp. So 2013 West Virginia, there was a certain coach on that West Virginia team, which was Shannon Dawson. I believe Geno Smith, they had him a quarterback there on that squad. Was he still a quarterback there, the 2013 West Virginia teams? But Shannon Dawson was there. I think the style of offense will be different, even though it is Shannon Dawson. He's evolved over the years. The running game is different. The mirror ball, crystal ball influence on that running game is high. You point out that Miami has a better running game than West Virginia. I could see it, though. The depth of receiver, it's going to be much more explosive. This is going to be much more like the 2024 offense, I think, statistically. The 2025 offense was very much efficient, productive plays, no negative plays, but not that many explosive plays, trying to pick up third down, fourth downs, 14, 15 play drives, and then convert in the red zone. Obviously, the formula worked. They were second best team in the country, now trying to be the first best team. I think the formula is just more explosiveness. Ashley Schaefer says, this shows that Mario is comfortable with the talent he's assembled, quality over quantity. Yeah, I can see that. Well, guys, get your questions in. Wanted to take an opportunity here to just answer questions because, again, the portal's been so hot and heavy. We've been doing so many shows. Haven't really had a chance to sit back and kind of answer questions you have that might be lingering about the roster now that we have players leaving, players coming in, and it's settled onto what we're going to look like in 2026 between high school and the portal. Canes Get Live asking, do you think the staff is high on Neiman Lawrence? So Neiman Lawrence, quarterback, originally from Ransom Everglades, which is not a football hotbed by any means. Miami-Dade kid, smart young man, character, all that stuff off the charts. Played really, really well young in his career. 8th grade, he's a starter, so he was getting a lot of notoriety early. Since transferred to Northwestern with Teddy Bridgewater at the time, who then moved on to the NFL. Kind of a weird saga there where he got in trouble for probably something he shouldn't have gotten in trouble for, kind of getting kids meals and rides and stuff, helping out the players on his team as a millionaire quarterback, but got in trouble for that. The other teams got jealous. And now Bridgewater went back to the NFL. Neiman Lawrence still at Northwestern. Had a great season last year. Really doing well on the 7-on-7 circuit, that offseason circuit now. So it was an incredible, accurate football, tight spiral after tight spiral. He's one of those throwing machines, just so consistent in terms of the spiral quality, in terms of the accuracy. Has a good arm. I wouldn't say he's like like a Bryce Underwood or Arch Manning where he's running over people with physicality and speed. I think he's much more pocket quarterback, high IQ, spin it, and has progressed at the rate you want to see. It's dangerous sometimes with these early bloomer quarterbacks. Sometimes they're sensations, but they peak early. With Neiman Lawrence, you do see a progression. He's a class of 2028 player, I should mention. So he is not even in next year's recruiting class at the moment. However, a lot of people are speculating, and this has been something I've heard since before last year, that he would eventually reclassify to the class of 2027. He's a guy who's very intelligent school-wise. He can probably handle that. And performance-wise, he's having a really, really good offseason, coming off a very good season with Northwestern and pads. So you could potentially see him be the class. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me, Canes Get Live. I've been so caught up in the college transfer portal that I forget about the high school transfer portal. You're right, Canes Get Live. I apologize. Neiman Lawrence has transferred to American Heritage, old school of Malachi Toney, Mark Fletcher. His top receiver, Nick Lanier, who Miami's also trying to get, has since transferred from Northwestern to Carroll City. So thank you, Canes Get Live. The high school transfer portal, for those who are not in South Florida, never really stops. It's insane when you really look at it. But you have guys following coaches leaving different places. Obviously, I mentioned that, Bridgewater is the one who really assembled that powerhouse at Northwestern. He moves on. Players following coaches different directions. Neiman Lawrence going to American Heritage. American Heritage is a school that produced the Bell last year, who went to Texas with Steve Sarkisian. Raja Bell's son was injured last year, but basically Neiman Lawrence stepping into his shoes. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But I am a fan of the player. And yeah, thank you for the clarification. He is at American Heritage. Trigger asking, after Malley and Coop, Malachi, Tony, Cooper Barkay, who's your third receiver starting the season? I'm hoping Josh Moore, but I have a feeling the West Virginia transfer Cam Vaughn can ball. Competition, man, is going to be great. I do think if you're betting on returning production, you really have 4 receivers standing ahead of the pack. Tony, Barkay, 2 of the top 10 receivers in the country statistically. And then I would say Cam Vaughn, who was the number 1 receiver for a West Virginia team that struggled to throw the ball. And Vandrevius Jacobs, the deep threat from South Carolina. Those would be my top 4 going into the spring. But Josh Moore is going to compete. He came back with the intention of winning a job. He'll probably be competing directly with the West Virginia kid, Cam Vaughn, because they're both those X receivers, those split ends, those big guys that can line up to the boundary and win with physicality, ball skills, and all that. So that'd be the battle you're watching, Josh Moore and Cam Vaughn. My boy Spencer asking, does Chris Ewald have a chance to win the nickel job? I think he does. I think he does. Very smart. He would have played a lot more this year if he was healthier. I think his body just wasn't ready. He was a little slight, nothing alarming, but he's just smaller guy coming in as far as his weight. Good height, good length, probably about 5'11", 6 foot with long arms, but the weight was what he needed to put on, and he just had some injury issues. So I do think he has a chance because he has extremely, extremely intelligence. Let's see who else like Cam Vaughn fans. Yeah, I'm a fan of Cam Vaughn too. Strong hands. Kind of reminds me of C.J. Daniels in that way. He looks a lot like him with his hand strength. Hassan Shiev asking, D, good morning. Do you think the 2027 class might be as good as 2026? And do you think Amir Sears, the superstar player from West Broward, who, speaking of the transfer portal, transferred to Columbus, he reclassified at 27? Again, I hear that. We'll find out. Miami doesn't get involved in these reclasses because, the high school coaches don't like when you're trying to reclass their players to get them early, right? They want those guys as long as they can get them. So Miami doesn't get involved in reclass. So, you hear rumors, you hear stuff. I certainly heard about Neiman Lawrence. I've heard about Amir Sears. We'll see. I do think South Florida is coming back. I am eager to get out there on the 7-on-7 scene here, in the camp scene, to see what these guys can do. I missed the opening, which really sucked because that was during the championship weekend. So we had championship activities, but we had a great event here at the opening with a lot of the top players in the country on hand. So we'll continue to evaluate, but I do think 26 was a bad local class. So I do think 27 locally at least will be a lot better. We'll see nationally. You and I got Jackson Cantwell and guys like that. So we'll see what the national class looks like. But I think just in general, Miami has a lot more juice coming into the 27 season because they just came out of the championship game. So their ability to sell players is much, much higher. Burstone asking, Cam Vaughn's only a junior, right? Yep, he's only a junior. So he was a quarterback. He was in a small town in Georgia. He was like a quarterback, not necessarily a full-time receiver, played small school football, goes to Jacksonville State, same school as Zechariah Poyser. Terry Jefferson is Miami's Nichols coach. Has success there. Follows Rich Rod. Rich Rod was the coach at Jacksonville State at that time. Follows Rich Rod to West Virginia. He's West Virginia's top receiver, but the team struggled and they didn't throw the ball that well. So he then moves on to the portal and now Miami. So he's only a junior, and he could throw the ball too. We talk about Malachi Tony throwing the ball. Cam Vaughn, he threw the ball this year too a couple times as a former high school quarterback. So different things you can see from that room. Hassan says, we missed the bank. You got to put one out soon? I will. It's just been, again, people have been so locked in on the portal. People so locked in on national championship. I don't want to call and be like, hey, man, what's the scoop on high school football, So I'd like to give all those guys a chance to do the important stuff, try to win a national championship coming up just short, but obviously a spectacular season, and then trying to close this portal class, land the plane, which thankfully they did, as we know, because Darian Mensah, Cooper Barkay, all Miami Hurricanes. Appreciate you, Birdstone. Yeah, like and subscribe to the show. Get your questions in. While you guys are getting your questions in, let me talk about my friends at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute, uhealthsports.com. If you are an athlete, active person, probably going to play some basketball, play some football. I myself just came back from the gym, so try to be active on the weekends. A lot of you guys, you know how hard it is to sit on the injured list with pain or injury. If you want to come back full speed, don't want to hack your rehab, come back less than 100%. You want to come back full speed and not compromise any movement or performance, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Whether it's elite performance with University of Miami athletics or just everyday movement, the experts at University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute will help you recover your game. Set an appointment today at uhealthsports.com. As always, got to shout out my friends at Islas Canarias. Might grab one of these this morning for breakfast. Just a little brunch action. Let's call it brunch at islascanarias.com. Number one Cuban restaurant on the planet. 7 different types of croquetas, Cuban sandwiches, salads, cubaritos, all the great items that you can get at islascanarias.com. Shakes, coffees. I mean, what do you want? They have it. The selection is huge. It's like the Cheesecake Factory in terms of the menu selection, but the quality is simply the best in Miami, in the planet when it comes to Cuban food. You go to Cuba, I promise you, you're not going to get food anywhere near as good. Certainly not going to get ingredients that good, and preparation and work ethic like you will get from Islas Canarias Cuban Express. By the way, go to croquetacounty.com. You get the special edition CanesInSight tea, Croqueta County, orange and green. There it is, home of the Islas Canarias Croquetas. You rock this around Miami, you will get a lot of love because everybody loves CanesInSight. Everybody loves Islas Canarias Cuban Express. That's at croquetacounty.com to grab the shirt. Will asking, you think Mensah will stay a second year? I hope not, because that means something went wrong. So, Mensah, you hear him talking in that interview with On3. His goal, boost his stock, go pro. So, look, anything can happen. But if Mensah's here a second year, I think we kind of messed up a little bit. So I hope that doesn't happen. Hope he stays healthy and goes pro. Papa Cool, appreciate you. Says safety and nickel is going to be a nice position battle this spring. Totally agree. Omar Thornton competing in both. I'm curious to see who moves to nickel. Are they going to just stick with Chris Ewald, guys like that? Would Ryan Mack play some nickel? Guys that have played nickel, or are we going to see a Damari Brown compete there? We're going to see who else potentially could compete there. I think the other guys are probably more outside guys, but Damari is the one I'm really, really looking at. Bryce Fitzgerald potentially. We'll see. We're Bakerton asking, what about Frankie Tinalau? He transferred. Frankie Tinalau transferred last season. He's at Eastern Tennessee State, I want to say. So, that was a miss, unfortunately. Big athletic guy. I saw the appeal. When you have 3 Polynesian players going top 3 in terms of offensive line in this year's NFL draft, most likely with Mauanoa, Fano, and Lomu, you want to miss on these big athletic Samoan guys. Frankie Tinalau is actually in Miami. He was at LaSalle. He had transferred there from Australia. So you got to take a guy like that. It just didn't work out. But I hope we still keep taking flyers on these poly kids, man, with size and athleticism. Those guys, it's pretty crazy when you think about the size of that population and the fact that 3, not just 3, the top 3 guys in this draft most likely are going to be Francis Mauanoa, Spencer Fano of Utah, and Caleb Lomo of Utah. We got to keep that pipeline rolling, man. Can't let that pipeline go dry. Let's see here. Hassan asking, why did Miami get a tight end? Did they not like anyone in the portal, or they like what they have? I thought they were interested in Pierce. I don't know. I would have liked to see us get a physical blocking tight end. I know Yale had a big dude who could move guys. I see the NFL. I see a lot of 13 personnel. I see a lot of multiple tight ends on the field. So I would have liked another tight end body. You do have Luka Gilbert. I think Luka Gilbert's going to basically slide into all of Bauman's snaps, assuming he stays healthy. I think you'll see Lofton continue his role. I'd like him to be more of a running back. I've been saying that. He's just get him slimmed down. I'd rather him be a big running back, big fullback than a small tight end. But to do that, you need tight end bodies. The name I'm watching, as one of our commenters here says, watch out for Gavin Mueller at tight end, 6'5", 6'6", 250, all the measurables. This guy's throwing down dunks on the basketball court, former basketball player, switched to football later in his high school career, tore it up, became, according to On3, which was the highest on him, number 3 tight end in the country. I buy it because this is how these great tight ends kind of grow. They play other positions. They're just athletic freaks that find the tight end position later in their lives. They're not like lifelong tight ends. Mueller fits that bill as a basketball player. Again, the size is there. He was 55, I want to say, in the shot put, which is ridiculous for a skill position player. Self-reports a 4.5, but you watch his highlights when he's playing quarterback, he looks like a 4.5. So I'm a fan of Mueller. Manny's saying Judd to tight end would be the perfect Buck Ortega, number 15. I was saying that last show yesterday. If Judd's going to compete at quarterback, he's a second quarterback. He's a second quarterback, and you're happy that this guy's progressing. If he falls behind in that quarterback battle, to me, tight end, 6'6", 235. He might be heavier than that. He could easily get to 250. Reminds me of you mentioned Buck Ortega as a guy with a similar size. How about Blake Bell from Oklahoma, former dual threat tight end, switched to tight end, former dual threat quarterback, switched to tight end later in his career. I think his senior year, ended up playing 150 games in the pros. So worked out for him. Hopefully it works out similar to Judd. I got X. I got to hit you up. We got to get you on here soon. But he said, yeah, thanks. Check out X, man. Footballville, Caneville, they're killing it. Shout out to the Villains. He says, think Miami's happy with our tight ends this year, more 4 wide this year. I agree with you, X. I think you will see, because you have so many receivers, you got to get them on the field. Plus you got Mensa, who's like a point guard distributor. You need to get all those guys, Vaughn, Jacobs, Josh Moore, Dalen Upshaw. Samoran Wingo's going to want to play. Obviously, Barcade and Tony are not going to be off the field that much. So you need to play all those guys. Tony, I think, is going to be just like, where's Waldo? You're just going to kind of have to hide him. Similar to how they did this year. But you have more weapons that could hurt you besides him, which I think is why this offense is going to be better this year. But Tony, I think similar to how you had him last year, move him around, make it hard for the defense to know where he's lining up, and then get him the ball every single chance you get. But at the same time, you also want to limit his workload. 16-game season is what you want. That's what Indiana had this year. That's what Miami had this year. That's what you want. So hopefully a championship game, ACC championship instead of that first round. We'd like that bye this year. But yeah, 16-game season, what your goal is. So you want to keep Malachi healthy. Similar running back. You got a lot of running backs coming back. Maybe too many mouths to feed. But if you get those guys carries, you keep those guys involved, you can save Mark Fletcher for that stretch run where he can stay healthy. He's been injured pretty much every season. He can go back to high school. You want him to stay healthy and fresh for the playoffs. So let's use all of these weapons that we have. That's what I'm thinking. Receiver and running back. Tight end, we don't have that many weapons, so you might just see less tight ends on the field. I just wish we went more with the tight ends, given that you'll watch the Super Bowl next week. Watch how many tight ends Seattle plays. Arroyo's been hurt, and they still play like 3 tight ends. The Rams, a lot of tight ends. So that's what I'd like to see. Devin asking, any chance Malachi Tony is a sophomore slump? I mean, there's always a chance, but one thing with Tony, I think you're going to see, the guy never, ever stops working. His work ethic, the way he takes care of his body, the preparation in the film room is second to none. So he won't be the reason he has a sophomore slump. Injuries happen, weird things happen, but I think Tony's going to be just fine. I mean, Jeremiah Smith didn't have a sophomore slump, J.R. Barr says Lofton's still a tight end, too heavy and short, has some talent for fullback, but stacked at running back position already. He'll play tight end. He'll play H-back. He'll play fullback a little bit. I think the key with Lofton, get healthy, lean up. Don't bulk. We should not be bulking Lofton up, in my opinion. He is so strong already. He came into Miami strong from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. He's just a naturally thick kid. He's got big legs. He's not ever going to be light. So to me, a guy like that, you get him lean as possible so they're as fast as explosive as possible, kind of like a Reuben Bain on defense. And they're always going to have power. They're always going to have size, weight, but they wouldn't have extra weight. They won't be bulked. So to me, lean him down. He's still going to be a good blocker for you. Move him around. And let's get back that extra step that he had in spring and last year. Because this year, he really wasn't, you can't think of some great plays he made after the catch, which when you watched him as a freshman in the limited chances he got, think about the play against UF where he caught a short pass and almost took it to the house. He was all about the fake punt against Iowa State. He was always about ball in hands after catch turning into a running back, and you didn't see that this year. Shout out to Papa Ewald, man. We're just talking about your son. I think he's going to be a factor in the nickel. Just, speaking of Chris Ewald, just elaborating on him. We talked about him on the show a bunch. And I've told Chris, his dad, he knows, but I've told people that weren't able to go to practice. Chris Ewald was on track to play a lot. I wrote about him on CanesInSight along with Malachi and some of these other guys that, hey, I think there's going to be an instant impact contributor. Just got banged up, body, getting acclimated to college. But I think with a full off season to get healthy and to get strong, you could see Ewald play a big role in the nickel because of his IQ. He's just super well coached, extremely intelligent. Nickel is so close to the action that you got to see things. You got to react quick. Obviously, you saw with Keontae Scott as like a fifth-year player and a smart player, the impact he had. You want guys close to the football like that to be very, very intelligent because things happen very fast. You got to react. You can't just be an athlete there on the outside. So I think Ewald fits in very, very well that nickel, but he's going to have to compete. And I'd like to see other guys play the nickel. So you have, number one, you have depth and you have competition. Get your best guys on the field. But Ewald is certainly going to be in that mix. I think he would have been in that mix this year, again, if not for injuries. Hurt his collarbone, had a couple other things going on. Let's see what we got here. Sonny said, I think the big winner of the portal, Shannon Dawson. Mario gave him all the ingredients to cook next year. Yeah. I think Shannon Dawson's going to have a great year. I think he had top 10 offense at Houston year before he came here. Obviously, he had the number one offense with Cam Moore. I think you're going to get back to that top 10, top 5 type offense this year on his resume. Shannon Dawson, offensive coordinator, is always getting criticism, but I think you look at what we were before he got here and what we've been since. I like the offense we've been playing since he's been here. And Dawson's got to love it, man. I mean, you're talking about always having great offensive line, always having veteran quarterbacks, having guys like Malachi Toney. He's got a lot of stuff to work with. He's got a good job too, and he does a good job. I saw him recruiting in Key West, the defensive lineman. I wonder if he just asked, hey, I wonder if that was part of his contract negotiations. When it comes to recruiting, I'll recruit the quarterbacks, and then you let me recruit Key West. Because Shannon was in Key West yesterday talking to a D lineman. I wonder how he got that deal. Kyle saying Damari Brown should play some nickel too. I think he should. I think with his size and his ability to blitz, his ability to tackle, he can set the edge. I think he should play some nickel. Now, he's going to play outside too, but I think let's use multiple guys. Let's find out who our best defensive backs are. We're bringing back everybody. There's no second portal window. They're not leaving. Let's figure out who's who and who fits best where, and who's going to have the best opportunity to help this team and go to the NFL. I think this day in NFL football, everybody always says, I want to be an outside corner for the draft. Look at the number 3 for Seattle, who plays nickel. The South Carolina kid, I don't want to mess up his name. You don't think he's going to get paid a lot when he comes out as a free agent? It's a very important position. Look how important Keontae Scott was to us. I would say besides our defensive end, he's probably the most valuable player on our defense. So that nickel position is not some kind of utility infielder, lowest paid guy in the team type deal. That nickel position is a serious position in modern football, and you need big time players there. I think Miami has definitely a few guys in that mix. What's up, Carlos Lito? Good morning, fellas. Go Canes. Appreciate you. Yeah, again, like and subscribe this morning. I got my own football practice I got to go to. Got to get my sons here. They're trying to play quarterback. They're rotating in. I tell them all the time, linebacker I think is in your future, but everybody wants to be the quarterback. So they got flag football. They'll be throwing the ball around today. Might as well start a quarterback and move back. Martin Yucatan says, perception is everything. Do you think this year we'll try to put more points on the board? This matters on Selection Sunday. What do you think? I think everybody wants to put points on the board. I hear what you're saying, like more blowouts and stuff. I think, look, when you have a better offense and you're built to be explosive, you're going to have more blowouts. 2024, we didn't have any blowouts because our defense didn't do the job. This year, our offense was much more positive plays, don't lose yardage, be efficient, convert on third down, convert in the red zone, long drives. Not protect your defense. They didn't need protection, but help your defense stay fresh and dominant. So when you have a top 5 offense, which I think this could be more similar to 24, and you have a real defense that's top 10, top 15, more similar to 25, that leads to more blowouts. So I do think you'll have more blowouts this year potentially, but long way from there. But we'll see. Great question from Pura Vida. Name one player on offense and defense that has potential to be a freshman All-America this year. I could tell you four names that were brought up to me as potential freshman All-Americas from people inside the building. And it's super early. We're talking about January 31st. They did have some padded practices because of the fact that the freshmen could practice during the bowl or during the playoff run. Now, again, not all of them practice the same amount. It was still very early. They were doing a lot of scout team stuff. The focus wasn't, development or competition. It was trying to get ready to win a game. So very limited sample. We'll know a lot more after spring. We'll know a lot more after August camp and summer. The 4 names that were brought up to me: Jackson Cantwell, Samorian Wingo, J.J. Dunnigan, Keyshawn Stansel. So that's 2 on offense, 2 on defense right there. If I were to pick from those names, Cantwell, I do think he'll start. Dunnigan, you hear his name a lot. That's a crowded defensive backfield, though. But you saw Bryce Fitzgerald as a freshman All-America this year. I don't think people were projecting that. He wasn't in here in spring. So those are 2 right there just from what I've heard. Steve Basada asking, is Lowe looking to take a starting spot opposite the Missouri kid, Damon Wilson? I think so. Hayden Lowe would have played kind of like with Ewald. If you asked me coming out of spring which freshmen are going to play a lot, I would have said Ewald, Lowe. They would obviously Malachi Tony was high on that list, but those guys were guys I was monitoring to play early, and they just got banged up. So I do think Lowe will start pretty early this year, or at least play pretty early this year, and potentially compete to start with his size. He's a physical player, high motor. Even though he's 5-star, you think these guys can be somewhat. They're not going to have that blue collar mentality. He's a dog, and he's big and talented and all that other stuff. Manuel Alvarez, everyone's obviously happy with proud of the season. With that said, getting to the national championship is very difficult. A lot is to go the team's way. With Mensa, do you expect us to be back? Initial thoughts? Saying, just like you said, it's hard to get there. I do think we're going to be more explosive on offense this year, not just because of Mensa, because I think, again, people are underrating Beck. People get so mad when you talk about, you compare Beck to Mensa because everybody's so ready to move on to the next thing. Beck would get drafted higher than Mensa this year. Now, I think Mensa could get drafted higher than whatever Beck gets picked this year, next year with a good year. And I think Mensa could certainly have a better year statistically and just in terms of on the field. But don't people acting like Beck was just some kind of walk-on because we move on to the next thing. Beck is a really, really, really good quarterback. He was 37-6 for a reason. He's going to get drafted probably second round, third round for a reason. It's hard to project with quarterbacks, but I think he's going to be picked in that range. This is not someone that you just immediately replace, but I do think Mensa, with how good he is, the natural passer he is, and then the fact that the receiving core has been overhauled and you still brought back your running backs, I think the offense will be more explosive. Now, the offensive line is going to take a step back initially just because of youth. So are they going to get to that level? It's one thing to put up a lot of points against some of these ACC teams. What I want to see is when you're playing Ohio State, can you push them around, convert first downs, and win the game decisively, which Miami was able to do on offense this last game or last year. We'll see. I do think we're going to be better on offense, but there's a long way to go before that happens. So we'll see. In terms of the balance of explosive offense and good defense, on paper, this is the best combination in a long time. So that's kind of where I'm at here. Jake asking, do you think it's dangerous to assume that the offensive line will be good? People are assuming the offense takes a major leap, but the offensive line's been steady for the last 3 years. I think, look, Mirabal's track record at that position is probably the best of any position coach, right? He's just the longest, most consistent track record of good offensive line play. You do have some experience. We think of it is going to be a younger team on offense, on the offensive line, but Ryan Rodriguez is a 6th-year player. He was in the class of 2021 with Cam Kitchens and James Williams and Leonard Taylor, right? So he's been around. Jake Garcia was in that class. So he's been around college football for a while. I think he'll be ready to play. He doesn't have as many snaps as some other guys, but he's played. He'll be fine, I think. I like Ryan Rodriguez. Sampson and McCoy, they were basically starters during this run. So those are 2 starters back. So those 3 right there are veterans. Then you get into the youth. And we'll see. Max Buchanan. I do think Max Buchanan replace Inez Cooper. I think he has a lot of the same qualities as Inez Cooper. They're both 6'4". Inez Cooper's heavier than Max Buchanan. Max Buchanan is probably 290, something like that. A lean, good looking 290, but Cooper had more size. He's probably in that 320 plus range, even when he's slimming down. So that will be an adjustment, just losing that mass and that size. But they're both very physical players. I think Buchanan's similar to Cooper in terms of he likes to talk. He's physical. He's a finisher. Just brings that mentality to offensive line. So I like that Buchanan-Cooper dynamic because you needed somebody like Cooper in this offensive line. I think Buchanan could be like that. And then we'll see if Jackson Cantwell can do what Mauanoa did. Mauanoa was a day one starter, was good day one, coming as a 5-star. Jackson Cantwell rated just as high as Mauanoa, comes in, day one starter. He's getting paid like it. We'll see. I heard he looked very, very good when he had opportunities there in these early practices, but there's a long, long way to go. I think he's going to be fine, though. But those are the guys you're watching. It's going to be a youth movement on the offensive line with some veterans being that anchor. The Joker asking, any coaching changes? Well, look, we need a tight end coach. So that's the one you're watching now. A lot of guys we talked about that make sense. Todd Hartley and James Coley at Georgia, 2 guys that have been in Miami before. Edwin Pata, who's now at FIU, another guy that was on this exact staff with Mario, who left to FIU, very well respected as well. So those are just 3 names that come to mind. Yeah, Papa Cool also mentioning like someone I forgot to talk about, Jamal Merriweather, the offensive tackle, offensive guard from Georgia. Hasn't played a ton entering his 4th year, but someone that Miami's very excited about, his length, his athleticism. They think he's just coaching and reps. Georgia fired their offensive line coach. That situation is a disaster. Get him coming in there, originally from Brunswick, Georgia, somebody that was raw coming in. So he's reaching his peak now. We'll see how that goes. All right, everybody, like and subscribe. I got to get out of here. Head to football practice. I want to do a quick one with you guys. Appreciate everybody joining the show. Again, remember to like and subscribe. We're on all the time. Go Canes.